See, I mentioned just on this particular subject of music and what we appreciate from music. Forgive me, but I watched one of your last podcasts, and what I
You
drew,
don't have to forgive us.
How dare you?
what I drew from it was that you all started talking about what is the music you like and what is good music and why is some people not into it and other people are. And you mentioned, what do you like about it? Well, you like a good beat, you like a good singer, or all the usual things. But what you missed was, every one of you, which I couldn't believe, is it has to have, for me, emotion. It has to draw on emotion.
Well, I think we did touch on that. We said that it
I
has to be delivered with conviction.
That's different to emotion.
I was my reference was Earth.
Tenuous.
Yes,
I referenced Earth. So like I for some reason went down the route of an electrician that it needs to have an Earth element to it.
Yeah,
I was going to ask you actually that question. What to you makes good music? So,
What is good music to you?
What is good music to you?
The answer to that is not a simple answer, as you all know, because it's not only subjective.
It's tremendously subjective. It's subjective, yeah.
But not only is it subjective to each individual, but it's also dependent on the mood of that individual, where they are, what they're doing, how they feel. And this is, I've thought about that question since you raised it in your podcast.
Yeah.
And,
because I like Pink Floyd, but I can't listen to Pink Floyd all the time. I have to be in the mood for Pink Floyd.
Yeah, but there's Pink Floyd and there's Pink Floyd. There's Pink Floyd, which is melodic, and there's Pink Floyd. Have you ever heard of the double album called Amagama?
Yeah.
It's absolute, total, unadulterated trash. It's just a load of noises. That is not music to me.
Well, there we go.
So I totally agree with you.
It's like a lot of people can't get on board with Captain Beefheart. It's just noise. But then some people do. But yeah.
Well, it's like Frank Zappa.
Oh yeah, I can't get on
A
with
lot
it.
of people think is godly status, isn't it? But and myself, I don't. It's not for me.
No,
I'm not going to say it's rubbish. But it's just not for me.
Yeah, and that's music. Everybody has their take on it.
There's a lot of that, and I'm glad it's like that. I'm glad we don't all like what each. Because how boring would it be? It wouldn't work then, would it?
Absolutely.
One of the biggest Marmite bands for me is Oasis.
Well, but that's because you've got an issue with them too, isn't it?
No, because
But you like.
I like
some of their songs.
I like the tracks. I just can't get on with them.
Yeah,
That's what I mean.
that's them though. That's not
But
music.
it's like that as a band though. You never get people saying, yeah, they're all right. You either like Oasis or you can't stand Oasis. There always seems to be, there's no middle road with Oasis.
Isn't that to do
Either
with
for
how
them or
it was
against them,
marketed
aren't you?
though in the 90s? Because it was like either
Possibly,
Blur
yeah.
or Oasis, so you had to pick a side.
North and South.
Yeah, it was North and South, yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I fell foul of that because that was a period of my life when I was a career man and I was moving geographically from place to place, focused on my career. Music was in the background to me and not at the forefront. All I heard was the radio and all the hype about North, South, Blur, Oasis. And I never really got caught up in it. But since I grew older and...
Wiser.
yeah, well, some people wouldn't say
I'll
that.
take that back then.
But for me, I absolutely appreciate the brilliant songwriting of Oasis and the tunes. Great, catchy
some of the
tunes.
songs are great. They really are good tracks, but I just don't like the band.
Especially, this is an important point as well. Especially if you are learning or a guitarist or you're learning guitar, which I've been for the last 2.5 years. You realise that they're so simple, but they're so effective, and that is a real gift. That's a gift to create something which is catchy and gets everybody's attention, but it's so simple because, as
It makes it achievable for aspiring songwriters, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And I guess that's maybe where their inspiration came from with the Beatles, because the Beatles aren't complicated stuff.
No.
It's quite simple. If you compare it to the Stones, you could argue that some
The
of their stuff
arrangements can be complicated, but the basic music structure isn't, is it?
Yeah, it's quite, especially the early stuff, quite simple.
Yeah.
Well, you say that, but there's a lot of chord progressions that the Beatles use and chords that are very unusual. That one chord, ding,
Ding,
Hard Day's Night.
Straight away. There's no other chord in the world that is usually that, and you know it instantly.
Kick your guitar over, you've got it. It's the car, it's the guitar, it's this chord that plays.
You know, sometimes people who don't understand anything about music can create actually more interesting pieces of music. So I've got two examples. One is JK from Jamiroquai. So his band says that they're all like, you know, trained musicians. They all know, you know, what chords follow what and what sounds good with what. But he'll come in one day and he'll be like, I've got this idea for a song, because he doesn't play any instruments, he just sings. And he'll like sort of like riff it out to them. And the guitarist will say that he comes up with the interesting chord progressions because he doesn't know like what note should follow what, because you sort of like, you become a bit of a crack addict for the rules of music. Like,
I get
this
that.
needs to go there.
Yeah.
So there's a bit of freedom in not actually knowing anything about music. So that's why they get some of the like interesting melodies and pattern. And another one is James Brown. James Brown used to dictate what he wanted in a song, but he knew nothing about music.
Yeah.
It was just, he knew what he wanted in his head and he'd like try and vocalize what he wants, but he doesn't know anything like structural scales or anything. So that's why a lot of this stuff is quite unique to his sound. So you don't always need to know how to play an instrument to create music, as long as you've got a band, though. You do need a band.
And on that theme, though,
It helps.
Bowie were like that. Although he did know chord structures, he'd throw in these weird chords that shouldn't be there
Yeah.
or wouldn't naturally be that progression or fit.
Isn't Life on Mars?
Yeah,
one of them?
because Rick Wakeman used, when he was doing stuff for him, he said, I want you to play this sort of sound. And he said, well, that don't work, but it did.
Yeah.
It did. And he did apparently he did it several times, that, didn't it, throughout his career. He'd come up with these unusual progressions.
I'm surprised you never made it.
Yeah, if he'd stuck at it, it'd been all right.
You're not.
And you're not, are you?
No.
Don't like Bowie.
You heathen. Good album,
Good
man.
album. Yes.
But Wayne,
No, it
do
just-
not ever say that.
It
That
talk-
is ridiculous
He
thing
just
to
talks
say.
to music. He can't sing. To me, he just
He
can't
is.
sing.
He is. I don't know whether you've ever heard of this, but there's a guy from the old days, if you like, called Anthony Newley. Ever heard of him?
Mm-hmm.
Bowie actually, if you listen to the early stuff, the Ziggy Stardust era, he has a voice, and the intonation and the voice is almost like, and he said it himself actually, he looked to actually sound a bit like Anthony Newley, and he does,
He does, doesn't he?
doesn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah,
But-
but
but-
based his whole singing style around that, didn't he, at that time?
But I cannot believe anybody can say what you've just said.
No,
That's blasphemy, my friend.
I'm not a Bowie fan at all.
Oh my God.
That's why we
He's-
started the podcast.